Hey guys, it's Brian. So today we're going to be going through a game that I had earlier regards to the Danger Shaddoll deck profile. If you have not seen it, I'll leave a link down in the description below. And we're playing against Skystrike. This game was a bit awkward since I did not draw into my Danger engine. And this replay is to show how well this deck can grind if it's really necessary. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the game. Since I am going to be playing second, I'm going to just show the fact that he does go into his setup, goes through engage multiple times, and pretty much it's just going to end with a Widow Anchor. We're face down multi-roll, and I believe she should be good. Oh yes, and a face down. So, I draw for turn and I draw Foolish Burial. And I decided to go ahead and send Shaddoll Dragon so I can get rid of the Widow Anchor. That way it does not mess up any of my plays, and I go for Shaddoll Fusion right away. I try to go for Construct and use the effect of Construct against Squamata. Surprisingly, he ashes the effect of Squamata instead of ashing the Shaddoll Fusion, so that tells me that he was not fully understanding of how my deck works and how certain cards work against each other. So I go ahead and just send the Shaddoll Beast, and I draw into another Fusion. And I try to go for Phantom Skyblaster to go ahead and try and make us our usual. To continue to deck them and try to draw a Rescue Cap, but unfortunately was not able to. As you can see, he thought that he takes damage for the Construct attack since it was a special summon monster. He doesn't take any damage for it. So he goes into his turn, goes for 0, Owen Kagari, and so he's going to go ahead and just use the Afterburner in a bit to go ahead and get rid of not only my Shaddoll Construct, but he's going to go ahead and go to my Shaddoll Fusion. I mistakenly was not fully aware that it did not allow me to go ahead and respond, since it's been a while since I played against the deck. So I had to go ahead and just get rid of both of those cards. Use Shaddoll Construct effect to get back to Shaddoll Fusion. And surprisingly, instead of attacking me directly, he just goes for a token. That way, it's not necessarily a bad play, but the reason why it's not a bad play is because he's limiting the resources that I have to my hand. But he did add a Shaddoll Fusion back to my hand, and so he knows I'm going to use it again. Since I drew into another one earlier when he used warning on the first fusion, I was just okay. I'm just using another one because he negated the activation. I can just go ahead and use it again. Because Shaddoll Fusion specifically states activate. It does not say use compared to the other Shaddoll monsters. So I just go ahead and go into Shekinaga. I attempt to go into Squamata. He goes into Widow Anchor. And decides to take the Shekinaga. I really didn't mind it that much, since I knew I was going to get it back. And I sent another Shaddoll Fusion to the graveyard, since I know I can get it back, but I really just didn't want to draw it, since I haven't been able to go through any of my engine with the Ninja lineup. So he goes ahead and just continues to go through his deck. And as you can see, he's just going to use multi-roll, and not only will he use Shark Cannon in Hornet Drones and Widowmaker to go ahead and take my construct from my graveyard and my Shikinaga. He decides to go ahead and does the most interesting play that I've seen in a while, which is to go ahead and use all those monsters to summon Borosaur. He probably thought he was going to go ahead and end the game, but he really wasn't paying attention to my graveyard, and so he did not realize that I sent Electromagnetic Turtle, which ends the battle phase immediately. So after he sets those two cards, Widow Anchor and Hornet Drones, I go ahead and top deck into Chupacabra. I decided to go ahead and try to force the situation, trying to provoke anything like the Widow Anchor specifically, to try and bear anything, because I'm trying to go for a Black Rose play. In this case, I go for Urwinda using only Hedgehog and Mothman. I was running really low on my Shaddoll cards, so I go into Black Rose Dragon, and he goes ahead and infinite impermanences. Get the Shaddoll Fusion back for Winda. Set the El Shaddoll Fusion and use Chupacabra. Gets rid of the beast, so since I have not used the beast effect this turn, and I can go ahead and draw an additional card. And I draw Bigfoot and Allure. I was tempted to use the Allure, but I just decided I want to make sure I can limit the cards that I get rid of from my hand, because I really just want to go ahead and either get a body or to pop the multi-roll. He is the Allure, sadly, but at this point, I'm not going to stress it too much. He does hit the Peril from my hand, which is another option for graveyard. And here I try to go ahead and attack both Rays to avoid any future Borosaur plays. And I attempt to go into Saryuja. He decides to Ash the Saryuja, which is a good play. And I go ahead and since I have not normal summoned, I set my Raikou. And thankfully he Twin Twisted the El Shaddoll Fusion, since I did not really want to get rid of that at the moment. And I didn't have any targets, because I only run one Shikinaga and Construct is at 1, and they're both in my graveyard. So I wasn't really complaining about that. Decides to take over the Saryuja and summons Ash from his hand. I was really thankful that he did summon the Ash. That way I knew that he gone through all 3. I didn't have to worry about anything as far as sending any cards to the grave using a fusion. So he attacks into Raikou first, which really helped me out. The only card that I milled that really made a difference was the Monster Reborn. But the other two was just an Upside Goblin and card destruction, but none of us had hands, so it really didn't affect it too much. He decided to attack into Beast, and I was actually a little bit relieved he did attack into the Beast. Let me go through the deck even further. And I had to get rid of the Raikou because Nessie E with Shaddoll Beast does not trigger, because Shaddoll Beast sends the card from your hand to the graveyard and not discard it. So he decides to use a multi-roll to go ahead and get back the Widow Anchor. And I draw into Bigfoot. I go into Nessie to try and provoke anything. He decides to go ahead and just let it go through. And I go ahead and hit the Nessie. I set the Allure Darkness, and I go into the Bigfoot, its effect, just to go ahead and get it out of my hand, so I can get rid of the multi-roll. I decided to go ahead and go for Allure, to just go through the deck even further, and I draw Mask King second. I decided to go ahead and set the Mask King second as a bluff, see if he goes and tries to do anything with it. And sadly, he top decks another multi-roll. He targets the Ash, gets 2 Hornet Drones. And as you can see, he has 4 cards left in his extra deck. So he's going through all his resources. Gets a Shizuku. and just decides to go ahead and go to the end phase. So now I draw into another Nessie. I decide to go ahead and just use the effect to get Bigfoot, and with Bigfoot I'm going to get rid of the multi-roll again. Goes to the Revolver, takes the Nessie and my Bigfoot, and he decides to go ahead and use the Unicorn. When I saw the Unicorn, I was happy because he's using a discard outlet to go ahead and just get the card back into my deck, which I really was happy because I not want to go ahead and just lose to drawing no cards. So at this point, I use Parapara to go ahead and try and get rid of the Unicorn. But unfortunately, he goes ahead and chains the Eagle Booster. But that means he has one less option. I draw into Rescue Cat and I decide to hold off, since the Rescue Cat will go ahead later on and help me win the game. And I do not have targets in my deck for the effect. So I go ahead, allow him to attack again, use Parapara again to go ahead and get rid of a Unicorn. So that way he's only stuck with the 2 cards he has face down, and he will have to top deck if those are not anything relevant at the moment. Draw the Mass Chain Second again. And I decide to go ahead and normal summon the Rescue Cat and attack him directly to provoke anything, since I was running really low on resources. I set the Mass Chain Second again as another bluff to provoke anything. Goes into Foolish Burial Goods, gets rid of the Metal Fusion. And I could tell at this point he was really just trying to draw anything to get out of the situation. I go to a battle again without summoning my Elephant after top decking it. That way, if anything, if he had something to provoke any monster disruption, I at least had something as a backup. I set the Elephant. I'm going to go ahead and start, and in a turn, he goes ahead and does the same play again as last turn, which is the Metal Fusion play. And he decides to go ahead and flip over the Twin Twister. And I was just like, he discarded 4 cards because of this. I go ahead and on my turn, why now? I'm deciding to go ahead and win it. So I go ahead and attack for 800, trying to get this game done as fast as possible. Because I really didn't want to risk him going ahead and going to any other cards. As you can see, I have 4 cards left in my deck. I was nervous because if he was able to get any monster on board, I was screwed. So I go ahead and attack for another 800, set the danger zone, and he decides to give me 1,000 life points. I don't blame him at this point because he's trying to go through his deck too and get any option, and he's just not drawing anything. I draw into a Solemn Judgment, and from this point on I knew I was going to win the game because anything that he was going to be able to use, I could just go ahead and negate it. So he decides to go ahead and set the monster and leave it face down. And I see that I drew Super Poly. I decided to hold off because I knew the last card in my deck was another Rescue Cat. I just decided to go ahead and hold off since he did not attack. I assumed it was a hand trap. So I dropped that card for turn. I decided to just go for it. And if it was something that I couldn't go ahead and use with Super Poly, that was going to be the game. And thankfully it was. Because after going ahead and taking the damage from the attack, I used Super Poly, go into my Mud Dragon, and with Mud Dragon I was able to go ahead and attack the game. he just decides to go ahead and just joke around saying, I kill myself. But this is something that I wouldn't have done because he reveals that he had a solemn strike. And that made me aware for the next game that he might have more solemns in his deck. So that was game 1. So heading into game 2. Game 2 was a lot faster, as we both had cards that we were willing to go ahead and go through our deck really quickly with. So he's just going to go ahead and get everything set up. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through all of this. He does reveal that he had a Mind Crush with 0, which was something to keep an eye on. So he ends on this turn with Shizuku and 4 cards set with a face-up multi-roll. I decided to go ahead and go for Shaddoll Dragon first. That way I can go ahead and try and get anything. Sadly, I wasn't able to go ahead and do anything. And I go for Barely Super Copper play. He discards my Rescue Cat, which is the card I didn't want him to hit, but I didn't want to go ahead and summon it because he does have Widow Anchor. And here, this is what happens when you play with cards outside of your budget. Sometimes you just misplay them. And so I immediately made a misplay with the Evenly Matched. So I was like, okay, still in battle phase, I'm going to go ahead and go into my Nessie. I'm sorry, use my Nessie and get out my Dark Law. So that way I can just go ahead and provoke any other plays. Get my Bigfoot. He does get right back, but I decided to go ahead and set down my Electromagnetic Turtle instead of keeping my hand, because that way he has to get rid of it at one point. And little did I know, this was actually going to help me out because he was kind of afraid of going into my monsters, because he was aware that they all have flip effects for the most part. So he decides to protect me directly with the Hayate, and he's just going to go ahead and just keep going through the engages. I think he used like 12 times in this game. It was the most recurred card, of course, because it just gives you so much advantage in this deck. So he's going to go ahead and end up attacking me directly again, instead of just going through the monster for the next turn. But he just didn't want to go ahead and attack it. So I just pass at this turn. He goes for the Hayate just to attack directly. I draw another Evenly Matched. So here's what I decided to do. I decided to go ahead and shuffle my hand just so he doesn't know that it wasn't the top deck. And I decided to set the Evenly Matched. Since I had another one in hand, it really wasn't going to matter if he gets rid of the one on field. So he decides to go ahead and just attack me directly. And I go ahead and flip the Evenly Matched. I actually give him the opportunity because he was trying to go through his options so fast. I offered him to just go ahead and go through his main phase 2 still. He decided to go ahead and let it go. So I go ahead and set down the Super Poly just in case anything does happen. And he just decides to go ahead and set. I actually Twisted at that top deck, so I was able to go ahead and get rid of the 2 cards that he had earlier. One of them was a strike. Thankfully, I was able to get those Twin Twisters in, and I did keep that in mind. But sadly, he did have the Ash to get rid of to not let my Lope go ahead and proceed with getting me any other board advantage, because that would have allowed me to go ahead and get into my Mothman to go ahead and go through my Minerva. So he decides to go ahead and go through his Hornet drones and trying to go ahead and put more cards. He does attack, final attack into my electromagnetic turtle. And this is where things get really interesting. Activate Shaddoll Fusion. It's okay, goes through. Goes through with Construct and Skomata to make sure I have at least one card that I'm sending to the graveyard. Activates Impertinence, so I only use one. I send a Falco, and with the Falco, he decides to go ahead and banish it. Which is okay in my opinion, that means he's one less worried. And this is where having Super Poly in this deck really shines. He goes for the Widow Anchor, takes my Construct, goes for Ray, and because he summoned Ray, that's where the game just went south for him, because I just went ahead, flip Super Poly, discard Bigfoot, and I was going to go ahead and go into Winda. And he just decides to quit the game from there. So all in all, you can see how the deck does have synergy and how it does work together. I personally love the fact that we can go ahead and use Construct again. But this, like I said, just shows how well this deck can grind if you actually have a bricked hand. And unfortunately, anyways, I do want to thank you guys for your time. Please make sure to give a like and subscribe. Even feel free to give a comment down below, and please turn on any notifications for any future videos. I do want to thank you guys for your time, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. See ya!